Well, let's go live for you to Beirut. Journalist Rennie Davis is with me on the programme. Rennie, can you just give us a sense then as to what happened today in Beirut and how the city felt when these strikes were taking place?
Right, so earlier this afternoon here in Beirut, we heard a series of very, very loud explosions, almost 10 explosions in less than a minute, with windows shaking, buildings rattling. We're talking about over a dozen neighborhoods in Beirut, and in highly residential areas filled with children and women, and not everyone there is a Hezbollah supporter either. In the entire across Lebanon, there were multiple targets, all within 10 minutes in the Bekaa, in the east of the country. In the south, continued strikes throughout the day in the south. However, these ones earlier this afternoon were without warning. So the capital is very, very rattled at the moment. We've had reports of people who really had no idea what was going on, who rushed to the nearest shop or nearest open building they could see to take shelter. And it's really just caused a huge sense of panic and distress in the capital.
You're talking about panic and distress, Renee, and we can only imagine the pressure now on medics, on emergency workers as they try to get the injured treated.
Exactly. So there's actually been a nationwide call for all doctors, all off-duty doctors, to report to their hospitals immediately. The Red Cross has sent out over 100 ambulances. The government has actually called for all roads to be cleared in order to make way for the ambulances. So, no cars on the road. There's also been a nationwide call for blood donations. There's a huge list of hospitals asking for all types of blood as soon as possible. And this also happens in the days coming up to these attacks. Multiple rescue workers have also been killed by Israel, so there's already a shortage in that domain as well. So all hands on deck across the entire country right now.
All right, Rennie Davis talking to us there from the Lebanese capital, from Beirut. Thanks very much indeed. And with me here in the studio in Paris, Ketavan Gorjestani. Ketavan, let's analyse those scenes in Beirut a little bit if we can, because we have had Pakistan, the mediator of the Iran truce, suggesting that Lebanon should be part of this ceasefire deal. Patently, though, Israel doesn't agree. That's why we've seen these huge attacks on Lebanon today. What's your analysis as to why Israel is conducting such intense strikes on Beirut at the moment?
Because the United States has not so much weighed in and left this question of Lebanon sort of up in the air because, yes, as you said, the Pakistanis have been very clear that Lebanon was part of the ceasefire, according to the documents that they have seen. The Iranians have said, we have made it very clear that Lebanon should have been a part of this ceasefire. In the 10-point plan that has been presented as such, there is a mention specifically of the end of all hostilities on all fronts, including and especially in Lebanon. And now the problem is that Donald Trump, when he posted and announced the fact that there was now a possible deal and that he was willing to talk with the Iranians, what he said was that the 10-point proposal by the Iranians was, quote, a workable basis for a negotiation. He didn't get into the details of who was falling under the ceasefire or not. But now we have, and this just happened very recently, a reporter in Washington in the White House from PBS who spoke to Donald Trump on the phone just moments after the briefing by the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and she talked very briefly with Donald Trump in what has become a sort of normal thing for Donald Trump, which is picking up the phone to talk to reporters for just 2-3 questions. And she asked him specifically about Lebanon. he said, yeah, they were not included in the deal, according to the Americans. She asked why they were not, and he said because of Hezbollah. He also called what is happening in Lebanon, and the word is going to be shocking, and a shocking juxtaposition with the scenes that we're seeing there. He called it a separate skirmish. So why is Israel doing this? Because the Americans are not telling them not to do so. And clearly, at least if you go by what Donald Trump has just told this reporter from PBS, it's not going to change, because Donald Trump, and this was something that was a little bit of a hint in the past, which is that in Donald Trump's mind, Lebanon is a separate issue from the rest of this war. Clearly, it is linked. Most of the other players in this conflict believe it is linked, but the Israelis are not going to stop unless the Americans tell them to do so. And for now, the Americans are not doing anything. The question is now, how much pressure can some of the mediators, including Pakistan, put on maybe the United States to tell the Israelis, look, give us a little bit of time to make these negotiations work? Because when you see the reaction from the Iranians now, they're saying, well, if Israel continues to hit Lebanon, we are preparing to hit back at Israel. And all of this would probably derail whatever fragile tentative ceasefire we have, even before we get to those possible talks on Friday.